Dmitri Alperovitch predicted Putin's invasion months before it happened. Now the executive chairman of the Silverado Accelerator out with a new book called World on the Brink, How America Can Beat China in the Race for the 21st Century. Dmitri, good to see you. Let's deal with beating Russia before we beat China. Is there any reason to think that Putin is going to change his actions based on where we are at? And as you look at it, is Joe Biden's policy to bleed Putin or to defeat him?
Well, Putin is not going to change his mind because of these sanctions. And we have to remember that sanctions have never actually changed any nation state's behavior, whether you look at North Korea, whether you look at Iran, Iraq before we invaded that country. None of them have changed their behavior despite really onerous sanctions that were put in place on them. But sanctions do have an effect. So Putin is paying a price. It's just a question of how much. Because the right way to think about sanctions is its gravity. It's taking you down, it's slowing you down. And the one thing that you are seeing now is that the Russians are spending a lot of money to keep up this defense industrial machine going. So as much as 40% of their liquid assets in their national wealth fund was used last year, in part to keep the machinery going, to keep producing munitions. And that's having an effect.
All right. You think about the way that Vladimir Putin has prosecuted this war, the way he has seen and dealt with what has come from Russia. As there's a car alarm going off behind us, we will press on. There's a bigger issue here, right, which is how Vladimir Putin deals with the United States. We think about that warning we just got about his new space-based nuclear weapon. From the Wall Street Journal, U.S. warns Russia not to deploy nuclear-armed space weapon to space. They said it could be ready as soon as December. Based on how the United States, how President Biden has acted over the past couple of years, is there any reason to think that Vladimir Putin is going to heed that warning?
Well, I think it's very unlikely that we have any mechanism to deter Putin because let's face it, that we've already done most of the things to him that he expected us to do and some of the things he probably didn't expect us to do, but he's weathered it. Again, it's having a longer-term effect on the Russian economy. Their inflation is in double digits. They're having, as I mentioned, a lot of liquidity issues. Their economy is not doing great, despite the fact that they've been able to invest a lot in defense production, but the rest of the economy is not productive. So absolutely it's having an effect. But in terms of stopping him, no, because he thinks he's winning. He thinks he's clearly taking back, he's conquering territory, new territory in Ukraine. He thinks the Ukrainians are on the back foot.
All right, so we play this out just a little bit farther. Either Joe Biden continues as president and continues these same policies. Putin continues to remain relatively strong, if not getting stronger. Donald Trump has made the argument that Putin would not have invaded Ukraine under his administration this time around, his second term, because he didn't during the first. And Alexei Navalny would be alive today because Putin didn't kill him during Trump's first term. Results matter. I'm wondering if you agree with Donald Trump's assessments, and if not, why not?
Well, with regards to Navalny, I don't think that's true at all because there were attempts to kill Navalny that go back to the Trump presidency. So even if they weren't successful, Putin clearly expressed intent to do so. With regards to Ukraine, it's hard to say. I think that the inability of the Biden administration to really signal to Putin that there will be severe consequence for this invasion had a role to play here. Unclear whether the Trump administration would have been more forceful or whether President Trump would have said, take it, right? He never had a particularly warm spot for Ukraine in his heart. So I'm not sure that Vladimir Putin would not have invaded Ukraine under the Trump presidency.
Yeah, far more dangerous world than when you and I first started talking a couple of years ago. Dmitri, thank you very much. Congratulations on the new book. Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.